Okay, we got the fan shroud out and the fan. Came out pretty easy. A couple little things, like everything I do, the biggest time issue is trying to find the right sockets and everything to get to it. But once I found those, 4 bolts on the shroud. The one big bolt, I took a big wrench, pipe wrench. Watching some other YouTubes talk about doing this, and he just hit it with a hammer and broke it loose, but when I tried to pull on it and pop it, it simply spun the belts a little bit. So what I did was took a socket and used some leverage off of this bolt right here, pulling against it on the alternator to keep the belts from spinning, and then a couple big pops on the wrench, broke it loose, easy peasy. Then it spun out real easy. Fan came out no problem. Then I simply pulled everything off, and now I'm ready to start pulling a few more things. I've got to get this pulley, I've got to get this housing off, remove the belts, break this intake hose loose up here, which I simply bought a new one after watching people struggle to break it loose from the water pump, the old water pump, etc. So I think I've got most of the hard stuff done. We'll see. One thing that they did recommend or say that I saw is make sure you keep your fan sort of upright. You don't want anything getting back into those bearings. If you lay it down, so it said not to lay it down. As you can see, I just leaned it up something. I did wash off, clean up my shroud housing a little bit. Not that it's going to do much good, but got some of the caked on big mud off of it. Cool. Looks like it's going as planned. Alright, so next part, I got the bolts out of the pulley here, the cover. Next thing I'm moving to, they were pretty easy. Had to use a couple sockets, one for leverage, one to break, but nothing too tough. After I broke them loose, they just hand screwed out, no big deal. Next thing I'm going to do now is take a breaker bar, put it in this hole right here. That'll give me the leverage to loosen the tension off the belt so I can pull the serpentine belt off. Alright, so I got a nice big breaker cheater bar here. Let's see if this can work. I'm sure it will. Should give me plenty of leverage to get it in there. Alright, so I've put the breaker bar into the little slot. All I'm going to do now is pressure it up, and as you can see, it rotates down, taking the tension off the belts. And then I'll just simply start pulling these off, starting with this one, this pulley right here, which I'll take off in a second. It doesn't have grooves, so that's one you can get pull right away on. And then it should just simply pretty much slide off. And then we have it. Serpentine belt. This belt, I don't know if it doesn't seem to have any cracks or anything. I don't know how old it is, but while I was doing all this for, I don't know, 10 bucks, 15 bucks, whatever, seems like a pretty smart time to put a new belt on. So I've got a new belt that we'll put in. Next thing after we've done that, now I'm going to take off my wheel hub there that held the fan that's over the front of the water pump. So give me 1 second, I'll get a screwdriver to break that loose. Next thing, I just simply got a screwdriver, got it behind the wheel housing a little bit here. May not be the right term, but that's what I'm calling it. Push it loose and it comes out. I'll also clean that up a little bit. While I got these parts off, I'm trying to clean as much as I can. Alright, one thing that I would recommend, and this is a good trick for a super slow guy like me that tends to walk in a lot of circles around and around trying to find things, I always try and put my bolts back into the pieces and the parts, etc. As much as I can, because then I know where they're at, I know where they go, I know which bolt goes where, so it just seems to help me put everything back together a little quicker and easier. Next thing you ready? Next thing we're doing, we're going to pull this wheel off. We have to do that to get to this intake valve behind it. It's attached to the water pump down here. Now, one thing that the videos or YouTubes that I watched didn't mention, but I hate to say I got smart, but I think I did. I bought a new intake valve or line, I should say. Inexpensive, new, and the reason is that's been sitting in this water pump. I don't think we've ever put a water pump on it. I don't know, this is a 2004, maybe at some point. I know I haven't in a long time, so I know breaking this intake line loose out of the water pump would be really a lot of time, and I just don't see the purpose in doing that. For a few more dollars, I've got a new one. So anyway, we're going to bust this loose so we can get that out. Maybe we're going to bust it loose. Yeah, there it goes. Once it breaks loose, it pretty much can hand turn after that. And there you go. Pretty good shape. I will clean that up a little bit. It's got old residue from the belts that have come over it. So I won't make it real sticky, but I don't know. Maybe that doesn't matter. Might even help with grip. So anyway, it's off. Alright, so getting this little hose off of your intake, your inlet line is a bit of a chore. It hadn't been moved in probably forever, for 20, pushing 20 years. So that will be a bit of a struggle right here, but it is easier to kind of push it from here, push back. There we go. Got a little something in it, but not bad. So that's off. The hose is in good shape. Off the inlet now. Next thing I'm moving on to is the water pump itself. I'll break the hose right here. Take it off. I'll make sure my bucket's underneath to catch anything that drips. Keep halfway cleaned up. We have to take out these bolts. These bolts, as I have learned, are different sizes. There's 1, 2, 3, should be several more on the bottom side. 4. So luckily I don't have to mess with the thermostat. I just put one of those in when I put my new radiator in at the end of last year, so we're good there. So that's where we're at now. Okay, I broke all the bolts loose off the water pump, the old one. One. And there's 2 loose, 3, 4 in the corner, and 1 on the bottom underneath hidden. Now one thing I'll do, again, because these bolts are specific, they're at different lengths, I will pull them out. I will put anti-seize on them. And then what I do is go ahead and stick them in the new water pump. Sorry, learning how to use this thing. So I just go ahead as I pull them out and I'll put them in there to, again, just for me, I need little time savers because I walk in a lot of circles, especially first time doing something like most of us. You need to make sure your bucket is underneath when you get down to that last screw. As you can see, the antifreeze is pulling that pouring out, bumping off my bars underneath, splattering all over the floor. Luckily I have something underneath, but after this drains, I'll do some cleanup. Again, we don't want to leave this laying around. Not that I have animals in here, but this is definitely not a good thing to leave. Okay, now we're putting the, got everything tightened up. We're putting the pulley on first, and then we'll come back over and put the cover back on. This is pretty straightforward. I'll find out, got my pipe, inlet pipe, I hope, in the right position so that it clears. Sorry. Yep, that's pretty good. As you can tell, I'm clearing the inlet pipe, inlet line. So that's a plus. That's all lined up nice. And then we'll take a hand, tighten it in, then I'll take a socket and just tighten it up. Alright, good deal. Just get that. Alright, then I'll wrench it down, torque it a little more to get probably close to specs anyways. Alright, now the next one, the cover goes in, and these 4 screws back over, nut for the fan, hopefully I can find them. Downside of it lifted. Little trick when you're lining this up, it's got little sort of U-shaped indentions. Once you get it over there, if you line those, your 4 holes over the 4 indentions, it'll get you pretty close to where you can get those screws in. Alright, so I'll go ahead and put the 4 screws in there and tighten it down. And then we'll get to next part will be installing the belt. And then we'll get the last hose on after that. Alright, so got the hose and the clamp on the intake. I also have the hose and the clamp on the other side of the water pump. That was a bit of a wrestle, just let the clamp get up under this little bracket and it gets a little hard to get anything on it. but finally did it. Next thing I'll do is put my wheel pulley right here. Get it ready to go. Back on, just got to clean it off for a second. Make sure it clears everything, looks like it will. And then the next thing will be the belt. And then after I get the belt, well, I'll take that back. The water pump housing right there will be next. The cover. Alright, one thing that the video I watched didn't tell us, didn't mention, and you will need to use some 2 wrenches or whatever to tighten these, and then tighten them to get you some leverage. And also when you take off and put on the fan, you'll need to find a leverage point to keep everything from spinning, so you can tighten everything or untighten it. Again, I'll just put I'll use 2 sockets in opposite directions, obviously, and to tighten this down while holding it from spinning while I try and tighten it. And then I'll do, when I get to the fan, putting it on here on the nut. Sorry, I'm not used to this thing. I'll do the same thing. I think I tightened it, went to right here as a leverage point to keep the whole belt and everything from spinning. Just a little time saver. You alright? So I've got all the bolts in. One thing I have to do is back out. I'm a little too tight on this pipe now, so I need to get me one turn out. I have to put a wrench on that so it'll line back up with the tube. I tighten these bolts with a little impact wrench, just using the star pattern until now. What I'll do is I'll make a couple adjustments on this line, make sure my water my hose line on the other side will go on, kind of get it lined up. And once I get those things lined up, I'm going to wrench some things down and tighten it all up. And again, we'll use the star pattern to tighten that water pump up and go from there. First, I'm going to back this off just a little bit. A little too much. If I can get this wrench in. Maybe. I don't know. Probably have screwed myself a little bit. There we go. Just a little is all I need. Don't want it resting on things too much. So go ahead and seat that hairline back on, this line up top for the intake. There you go. Let's get it on in, then I'll come back around and tighten it with the clamps once I get it all in position. And I'm happy with it. Sort of final check. There we go, nice. Alright, that's perfect. Good deal there. Alright, now come back on this side with the hose. That's good. And again, then we'll get the clamps on once I've got things tightened. And we feel like we're happy with everything. So I'm going to torque down the other bolts now using the old-fashioned muscle. Get it from somebody. And again, I'm going to use a star pattern. Don't want to make sure my gasket is good and solid, and this will do that. Make it nice and even, smooth. Hopefully airtight, so no leaks. Obviously that's the goal. Pump good and tight. Looking good. Alright, now comes the interesting part, the getting the serpentine belt back on correctly. We went online, we found the pattern. They should have, usually they've got that pattern on your radiator. My radiator's been replaced. I recently did that, doesn't show you the pattern, so we did find one online. So got that sitting over there for me to use as a reference. Just kind of playing with it. Got my belt ready, and now I'm going to use my cheater bar again to get the tension off and start trying to feed it through everywhere as to what looks familiar. This is an interesting. Okay. Plus on top of it, it's hard to see. So it looks like 2 goes through here. One, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom. The big wheel. All right. Back up through. Four, 5 around. Doesn't seem right, but anyways. Okay, stop for 1 second. Alright, we've got the belt on. Feel pretty good about it. Found this diagram online for a 2004 Wrangler inline 6 with AC. Very important that you get the right diagram. Normally there's one here on your vehicle, but I think since I changed my radiator out and put a new one in, that it probably went to the trash with that one. Anyway, here's the diagram. Pretty easy. Key is get your beater bar, cheater bar right here. Take that tension off. You want to bypass the idle pulley because it doesn't have any grooves. So kind of do it last, and then weave it through best you can. It's a little tricky on 5, which is the crankshaft pulley, because it really doesn't show you how it goes. It goes underneath 5, back over the top of 6, and then 6 comes down to underneath a 4. 4 being the air conditioner, 6 being the water pump. Again, suggestion, take pictures with your phone before you pull the old one off, just to give you some points of reference. I know it's hard to get a camera in there, but we did that and it helped us kind of give us a little guidance. Like I say, again, take the tension off here using that cheater bar. That's the key. Use your leave the idle pulley off because it doesn't have any anything to keep it in the center groove. You can get it over there easy once you get tension on the belt through the rest of them. And then that's it. Now all we have to do, I have one more hose to put back on the top. Then I will get my fan on and the shroud around it. Then we'll fill it up with antifreeze, etc. 50-50 mix, and bleed it and test it and take it for a little spin to see if it's overheating or not. That's it. Alright, Got the belts on, got the fan back on, got the shroud on, fan guards, hoses, everything. Filled it up with 50/50 antifreeze. Right now, I'm just trying to get the air out of the system. As you can see, it's bubbling. I went over and squeezed the top hose over there just to burp it, I guess, a little bit, get some air pressure going. But so now it's just a matter of working on the air in the system, taking it for a little drive, watching the temperature, and other than that, everything looks pretty good. So, took me about 3.5 solid hours. Of course, probably pushing 4. I spent the bulk of the first hour just walking in circles. But like anything, once you do something once, it obviously will be a little quicker. And if you got someone that knows what they're doing and can help you, it would definitely cut the job probably by 1/3. Right there, you can see how much air just popped out of that thing, and a big gulp went way down. So we'll keep doing this. And filling it back up, and then I'll fill the reservoir after we get it settled. But yeah, starting to get it in the system and keep babying it along.